And that touches on nicely to the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the fact that for women, particularly in the run up to menopause, the perimenopausal period, there are a great many effects of menopause that you wouldn't necessarily associate as being part of that transition. And I know for myself, they have included things like heart palpitations and anxiety. And I've worked with a number of women who've just had this almost unbearable sense of overwhelm, anxiety, and GPs are very ready to offer antidepressants, but actually it's symptomatic of the transition, the hormonal transition that's happening within their bodies. So what sort of other effects of menopause have you worked with, Hannah?
Like you said, there are so many different things that people can experience with menopause. I mean, for me, probably the most common unspoken on the run up to and through menopause is vaginal dryness. Yeah. It's not something that gets talked about. It's not something that people are happy to talk about with their friends. Obviously, it's not something you can really comfortably discuss in a coffee shop. And it can be quite hard to bring it up with a GP. So, I mean, there are certain, I'm sure you probably look at it the same way. There are certain, nutritional aspects that can help with that aspect. And there's also other things that you can do. So, I mean, I make pessaries for people that help to heal internally and just help to make the area a lot more comfortable. And not only from a day-to-day perspective, but the changes that can have on people's relationships with their partners if it's too painful to have intercourse.
Yeah,
that's a huge emotional and physical barrier. It really can cause a lot of problems for people. So that's probably one of the more common ones that I see.
That one's really important to talk about as well, because like you say, it affects those physical and intimate relationships. It affects a woman's feeling of being feminine as well. But equally, it can also give rise to more urinary tract infections.
Yeah.
So again, if they're then frequently being treated with antibiotics, you're kind of compounding the problem rather than alleviating things for yourself. And of course, this then affects your pelvic floor function, which we know changes through the menopause, which is a big area that I work with women on. But we won't start on that, or we'll be here for hours. But were there other areas you were going to go on to talk about there?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of big one. And to be fair, most people will experience a level of it at some point through the process of menopause. For me, when I had my medically induced menopause, a big thing for me was excruciating joint pain.
Right.
Yeah. My fingers and the bones in my hands really felt like they were being snapped. It was really griping, sort of like a strange sort of snapping sensation, that level of pain. And it's something that I don't see commonly, but I see it enough to know that it wasn't just me. It's something that does happen throughout natural menopause as well. So for me, I know that I made myself a number of different oils that I could massage onto my fingers, and found that certain creams would help through the day if I didn't want my hands to be greasy and that kind of thing. So that's something that really affected my quality of life, because it would usually happen just as I went to bed, and then it would start to get worse throughout the night. So that had a real bad knock-on effect on my quality of sleep. It wasn't a sleep problem. I'm someone who sleeps really well, fortunately, but it really affected my quality of life quite badly. And something else that kind of gets overlooked a little bit as well is the aspect of the fact that it's a big life change. And it's going through another stage of the development for the female body. And for some people who have perhaps been trying for a child and been unable to have a child, the body making those changes, meaning that they're going to be unable to conceive, can bring on an almost grief-like response.
Yeah.
And in addition to people who, maybe have, put off trying to conceive when they have thought that it might be nice to have children at some point, when the body reaches that point of menopause and changes, then that ability is being not taken away from them, but they're not able to do that anymore. And that's something that I really don't think is given wide enough and good enough consideration, because it is like a grieving process. It's coaching people through the fact that it is a change, but so working with people's nervous systems to help them to feel better about the process.
Yeah.
And talking with them, because it's not an easy thing for people to talk about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something that I pick up on a fair bit, really.
Yeah.
But it's an important thing to talk about.
Definitely, and I think it's sort of what you said there really encapsulates the fact that rather than menopause just being a point when your periods haven't appeared for a year, it's actually this massive transition that affects you mentally, physically, and emotionally as well. And allowing your body time to process that, and your mind to process that, but supporting it in that process as well, rather than kind of berating it for not looking the way you want or performing in the way that you want, can make a massive difference to how a woman feels during that transition, but way into the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I know we could talk on so many different levels about menopause, and may well do another one, and we'd always be happy to take specific questions if anybody
absolutely
has specific questions. But Hannah, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or work with you, do you just see people face to face, or do you do virtual work as well?
I tend to just see people face to face. Whilst I can do Skype consultations further along down the line if people aren't able to make it into clinic, having that face-to-face in-person contact is I think really important. So if people want to book in to see me, I've got my own clinic on West Parade in the town centre in Lincoln, and I see people there. I also do home visits for people that aren't able to make it into town for either health or mobility reasons. And you can find more details on my website at thedistrictherbalist.co.uk. And that gives all the details of how to contact me.
Fantastic. And is all your social media handles on there as well, Hannah?
Yeah, all my social media handles. So I do mostly Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, rarely on Twitter, but you can reach me on all of them.
Fantastic. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Hannah. It's been fascinating and really useful chatting to you as well. And as we already mentioned, if anybody has specific questions about anything that we've talked about, or just, I think it's important to say that menopause is something that we can prepare for as well. You don't have to wait for it to come to you. You can meet it, and just having that information and knowledge can serve you so well during that transition. So brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Hannah.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure.